welcome to the Festival of Storytellers.
I can't tell you how excited I am to be on right now. It's been a couple of weeks of excitement getting prepared, and I've done a lot of things in my life, but this has got to be close to the top.
Thank you, Reader's Magnet, and thank you, John, for putting this forth and taking the chance on our authors in presenting this out to the world.
I've enjoyed this immensely, Joanne.
Ellie, so have I. Thank you for who you are, and thank you, Reader's Magnet. You all are beautiful, and you've worked so very hard, and we are blessed.
We are.
I thank everybody that's involved with this process, because we know writers need readers and writers need publishers. We thank Reader's Magnet and everybody that's involved. I love Reader's Magnet. They say, we share your stories with the world.
I guess I'm maybe on. I'm Richard Tafel, and I have written a book that is rather important to everybody. It's how to control your government. And it's amazing that we could do such a thing, you must feel. But there are parts of the world that are doing it rather extraordinarily well, much better certainly than the United States or Canada or most other countries, and that's Switzerland. So I wonder if you realize that Switzerland is a burgeoning country. It has no reason whatever to be so successful, surrounded by such big countries as France and Germany and Italy, etc. But it has not only extraordinary involvement in world affairs, but it also has a collection of people that are very democratic and very successful in the world's affairs. And they do this by utilizing what are called referendums. Now, you all know what a referendum is, but you don't realize just how effectively it can be used if it's carefully established in the laws of your area. Because if it's done properly, the common sense of the common people often come to the fore much more successfully than that of the elected representative. It can't always be done. You can't get a referendum on everything you want. You have to have a certain number of people sign a petition within a certain period of time. And the wording of the petition has to be accepted by an organized administration, so that it's not confusing and so that it's not beyond the jurisdiction of the area that it's being looked for. But it's done in a very effective way. They have petitions on just about every kind of a subject you could imagine. And of course, they also have elected representatives, exactly the same as the United States, with House of Representatives and the Senate. They don't have a president, which is they can be very thankful for right now, I must suggest to you. But they do have, instead of a president, they have a group of 7 or 8 representatives, and they select for 1 year the chairman, who acts as though he or she is a president. And their general determination is that the decisions have to be a consensus. But it does work. It does work extraordinarily well. Just have to go there and see all the aspects that are running smoothly. So you might say, well, why don't we do it? Well, why don't you? The president is so significantly established, it seems, there, especially now, with the 2 runners potentially to run things in the States, both seeming to be inept and inadequate. But in any event, it doesn't matter. If you had referendums, you could establish what you want to have determined, and the people themselves would decide. Now, my book, You Can Control Your Government, explains all that. And it's how to restore real democracy to the citizen. And it's a study about proven methods of direct democracy via citizen referendums, which should be instituted in your country. And but it does need the direction and the motivation, the effort of the public to persuade the parties at the moment to establish laws that will institute the referenda. And you've got to realize, and if you read my book, you'd see just exactly how it works in the various areas, that it has been very useful in helping Switzerland maintain completely inappropriately the significance that it has in the world, because it's such surrounded by these major countries, as I've mentioned. It's not attached to the sea in any way. It doesn't have any natural resources to speak of. And it has 4, believe it or not, 4 official languages. And despite all that confusion, you might think, it operates extraordinarily successfully in just about every manner of doing that you would have wished and want. So I can go over some of the aspects of the book, I guess. Maybe the chapters might be interesting. There's 2 forewords by 2 very important officials within Canada. I live in Canada, and I wrote it in Canada, of course. And the 2 officials that emphasize their understanding and awareness of how effective this can be is Mike Harris, a former premier of the province of Ontario, and the other one is by Preston Manning, a president and CEO in a political party in Canada a few years ago of considerable significance here. They both recommend the book in big ways. But in any event, the introduction is perhaps something that just describes so well, because doesn't it rile you the way things are run by the government? Things just happen without your prior knowledge, involvement, or acceptance. We're supposed to be a democracy. where the citizens are supposed to be the ones that determine things. And of course, we don't. And read on. The government is everywhere. You know that. Just about everything you do is controlled or effected as a result of some government decision making, and very expensively as well. So does majority opinion prevail? How? In what way? You're electing a representative that he, along with a few others, they're the ones that make all the decisions of everything. You have nothing to do with it. Educational standards, public parks. The majority opinion should prevail. So, are we the people ruling? Is one of the initial chapters, and of course we're not. And I'm now 91. I know a little bit about things that went on in my community, and I know, and you do too, how little we have to say in anything that goes on within our community. And this is causing public cynicism. We know about that. Lots of people don't even bother voting for their elected representatives because they know it doesn't make any good sense. And yet deciding the issues of government should be, could be, by you people. All you need is to indicate in a form what the issue is, get the wording approved by a formalized organization, which could be widespread, several places in your district, your state, your country. They would authorize the wording, and then you try to get people to sign it. And if it's not a good issue, you won't get many. So it has to be something that merits the opinion of a lot of people. And you go to supermarkets maybe and get people to sign the petition, or go wherever it's appropriate. And if you get whatever is the number, maybe you need 1,000, maybe you need 10,000 names, depending on what the jurisdiction is that you're concerned about, whether it's the local one or your statewide one or your federal one. The more you need to sign the petition. Then you have time to promote it, and it's put on the agenda at the periodic election. You might just as well put it there as any other time. That's every couple of years, probably, you'd have a collection of petitions. Some of the states in the United States do that now, but certainly nothing federally is ever done by way of referenda. And even the states have some inadequacies in their manner of utilizing, and the extent to which it's deemed to be legally required, the law, or whether it's just an opinion. You have to establish that in the rules that your state has implemented, just as they have done over the years in Switzerland. So, as I say, issues affect us in so many ways. What's taught in schools, the construction of government buildings, what to pay our leaders, rules against drinking or gambling, or about marriage, or assisting minorities, or inculcating national pride, or to subsidize athletes or artists, or taxing us to pay for things. And now our governors are supposed to help secure us from others who may be attempted to harm us. And so issues are often about laws. What are we allowed to do? What can we own? These are all matters that we really have no say in, that our government decides supposedly on our behalf. Anyway, we have very little say in all these things. And this Swiss success is an example that we could read about and follow. And my book describes the many issues that are determined in this way. It's not a big book. It's only 107 pages. It establishes the details. You can buy the book from Amazon. You can control your government. It's simple. It shouldn't cost more than a few dollars. I think they might charge $3. The many methods that it's done in Switzerland in particular is described very well in the book. Chapter 2 is democracy stuck. I bet you've all said that many times. It really isn't working. And we can describe how many different ways it has not followed the basic public. The parties outweigh representatives' influence. That's the big thing. My goodness, in the States, you've got the two parties, and one thing is, if it's not agreed to by the other, you can't even get a law made from it. Anyway, that's a real mess there, as you all know. And people have become disgusted about this, and you probably are amongst them. So the evolution of modern democracy, we can have a little bit of a study about that in the book, and about Greece coming first, and ancient English democracies, and of course, United States history on it, a little bit about that. And the question, is democracy working in USA? And many would say that it's not working very well now. I think you all, virtually all of you would agree with that. The national state has become bloated beyond recovery. But groups can, if you have these petitions determined, properly worded and decided upon, can overcome the current stalemate and all of this sort of thing. And even George Washington, I refer to him. He said, "Let me warn you against the baleful effects of the spirit of party." Right? Baleful effects of the spirit of party. Don't you yourselves understand and recognize that that's what's happened? And this is not just the States, it's an area all over the world that these issues are not properly determined and things aren't working as well as they ought to. So that's why I go into referendums in great detail and how in different areas they've been worked effectively, and some not so, countries not so well. And the worldwide usage in 1992, I would go back to actually in it. And there is a lot of happenings back then that seemed to start moving in the right direction, but they didn't go as far as they ought for whatever reason. Parties and leaders have overcome the common sense of the general public. And I use the term common sense in the book. What is it? Do you have it? You know, most people would say that the majority of people do have common sense. And they exercise it effectively in lots of ways. Our country's people, they do things well, generally, and that common sense of people is widely respected in lots of areas of the world, not necessarily so much in North America, unfortunately. But getting back to Switzerland again, within its constitution, it states that no changes may be made in a constitution unless agreed by a majority of the voters in the country as a whole. Well, doesn't that make sense? It works well there, and it's the way it ought to be. And it should be way of a referendum so that they can read it, understand it, agree to it, and that's what will run your country. And the referenda has a place in following through with all of that. So citizens' initiatives, that's what it's called in the States and elsewhere. And you do sometimes effect changes that way, not as nearly as much as you ought, and certainly not federally, as I mentioned. So this is done in California to some extent rather well. One of the richest countries or states, country, they call it a country, in the world, and generally does things pretty well. The Proposition 13 was a very good one, where they voted to reduce the amount of taxes that could be charged. And it's actually served the state, rather effectively. Oregon has quite a lot of initiatives, as they call them there, that work pretty well. And as they call the country, the state, I should say, to collapse, no. It still works very well, as it does, of course, in Switzerland, where they do it much more often and with more controls than in the states of the United States. But of course, all of this depends on you whether you believe in democracy. Do you? Maybe you don't. Maybe you want to be told by others everything that you can do. But I doubt if most people don't agree that democracy is the way they would like to see their community, their state, their country operate. So the book goes into this and describes many of the issues that have had that result in Switzerland in particular, and even among shareholders. It's done. And how the details of how it works in Switzerland, it goes into all that in the book. And it's a book that, as I say, is simple, should be read and followed. And some of you institute some of the expressions of ways of controlling your government. So I don't know how much time I've got, but I guess more than enough. Have you heard from me? Get the book. It's simple. It is only 100 pages long, and it does set out the very important, very significant aspects of our whole society, how democracy should be run. I hope you've listened to what I've said, and I hope that you can follow it. So get the book. It's You Can Control Your Government is the name. Amazon has it, as I said. You can get it from them easily. And maybe it should be printed in print form, and that could be done one of these days, I guess. But at the moment, you get it through your email, through your computer, etc. And hopefully you'll do it. So You Can Control Your Government. You've heard from the author, Richard Tafel. He's been around a while. He knows a few things, not a lot, but he does know areas where democracy has worked very, very well. And he would like to think that more areas, such as in particular the United States, than the states of the United States, pursue referendums and get the common sense of the people to decide on major issues rather than the few elected representatives who usually determine things by way of what their party decides and not in the obvious referendum manner, which gets the people to make these decisions. So thanks for listening to me. If you have, I hope you have, and get the book. It's You Can Control Your Government. This is a copy that I had made a few years ago. You won't get this exact cover in the book companies, but you'll get the exact wording through a request from Amazon for the copies. So again, thank you for listening to me, and hopefully some of you will follow up the admonitions set out in that book and improve things. Thanks. Now, I've got a call.